I'm in a very tranquil setting, and indeed with going behind me, the fountain behind me, I could be anywhere. But this week, Waterford at 8 has gone out into the county for the first time ever, and we decided we'd visit one of the most holy spots, indeed one of the most historical spots in Ireland, never mind saying Waterford. We're in Mount Melleray Abbey. We're going to have a look at some of the things that are in Mount Melleray here, talk to some of the priests that are here, and in general get an overview that you might not have seen before of this gorgeous part of County Waterford. Come with me. Well, we're in the church, and as you can see, there's been major restructuring done in here. And Father Francis, there has been major restructuring done in the church itself.
Oh yes, indeed. Wouldn't be much change out of $500,000, I'd say.
But you had to literally tear down the walls inside, and I'm sure people that have come to Melleray 30, 40 years ago would recognise one thing immediately, and that is that the large crucifix is gone.
Yes. Well, the fabric has remained the same too, you know, the general fabric. There's only internal changes that were done.
A contemplative order like yourselves are not supposed to know what's happening outside, but you're totally in touch with what's happening outside.
Well, that is a big change. We are allowed to see the daily papers. The idea there was that we would pray for these people in these situations that we read about, that while we always prayed for people and for disasters and so on, that we would now have a personal knowledge of these things and perhaps pray more fervently for people and for situations outside, north of Ireland and so on.
Now basically, years ago you would have been totally self-sufficient. You would have done everything for yourselves, and you would have had your own workmen out here. You would have had your own gardens. But I don't think it's economical to do that anymore, is it?
Well, that is true, but it's more the question of staff. We used to have over 100 monks. Now we have 35, and we'd like to do these things ourselves, but we can't do them, you see. That would come first, that we haven't the men to do these things, these jobs.
Well, you're not alone in that, because the whole church as a whole is suffering from a lack of...
Right. No, but we would love to be into this organic thing now and so on. We'd love that if we could, you know, and we do a certain amount of it.
The church as a whole has a lack of personnel. How are you fixed here in Melleray?
Well, we're doing okay. We have 4 young fellows at the present time. They're fully fledged now. And there are many applications and many asking, but what has changed is that the entrance requirements are more rigid than they were before. Because society has changed so much, you have to be very sure what you're doing and what you're taking, you see.
What about yourself? How many years are you here now?
Over 50 years.
When you joined, the day that you joined, of course, you joined into a community. There was a vow of silence.
Well, a rule of silence. Yeah.
And how did that sit with you now, with the modern concept that you can actually talk now and have a chat to each other?
Well, it isn't such a great change really, because we could always speak to whoever was in charge. First of all, the abbot and prior, and then novice masters and scholastic masters, and then in class we could speak to the teachers. So it was never as rigid as people thought. And then we had a system of sign making, but this became a bit nonsensical in the modern world. So the silence is still observed and still honoured, but just the big difference, I'd say, is that we can speak to each other now when we couldn't before. For instance, I work out at the lodge now, meeting the guests, and normally in the old days when I'd returned to the cloister, I wouldn't be permitted to speak to my colleagues, but nowadays I could, if I wished. So what has happened is the silence of centuries descended upon us, but then after a while things evened out, and we were as silent as ever, I'd say. And the signs was a bit nonsensical and could easily be misinterpreted, because a tone of voice, you see, you can say by a tone of voice, your tone will indicate how you're feeling, whereas a sign looks very peremptory, you see.
We're in the church, and indeed a feature of the church is this magnificent stained glass up at the back here, and there is a story to it, isn't there?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's Harry Clark Studios.
So it's worth about £1 million.
It's worth a bit of money, I would think. Now, yes, it's probably they couldn't put a price on it, I'd say, due to the antiquity of it and so on. Yeah.
And what is the story depicted on it then?
Various saints then, and I have to say that up to recently I didn't know who they were myself. I knew some of them,
right.
Now I know all of them, because we have brought out a pictorial history, giving the names of all of them, all the saints. So you have St. Bernard up there, St. Malachy, St. Carthage, St. Patrick, of course, above all, Our Lady. It's this every Cistercian house is dedicated especially to Our Lady, and that's Our Lady's Assumption up there. St. Bridget of Kildare, I couldn't remember that one. St. Columkill, St. Catherine, St. Carthage.
Tell me a little bit about the schedule, the daily schedule that you have here in the monastery.
Well, I'm sure the guests are not pleased with us at the moment, or for some months, because we ring the big bell. We used to have an electric bell for rising, as a rising bell. Now it's the big church bell that goes and wakes the dead. But anyway, we started with, that goes at 3:45, 3:45. Prayers start at 4 o'clock, and then they last up to about 4:45. Then we have what we call private prayer, mental prayer, or meditation if you like. Then later on breakfast and some reading or study. Then morning prayer, mass, followed by mass, and then an interval again. Third hour, then 9:30 prayer, 12:15 prayer, 2:15 prayer. This is weekdays now. 5:45 vespers and 8 o'clock compline. So that's our real work, to be at the office, and that's why we have to stay put and stay around the place as much as possible, and work near home to be able to attend the offices regularly, punctually every day.
Of course, people can be excluded from office here because they've got duties like as in the guest house with yourself, out on the farm, and whatever else would be happening around here.
Yeah, from the very beginnings of the order, that would be the situation. St. Benedict would allow you to, when you can't go, well, you're free. St. Benedict said to prefer nothing to the love of Christ, but he said nothing should be put before the divine office either. But he made the exception, though, that people would see Eunice, people sometimes would be unable to attend.
And now the crunch question for you. After 50 years in the order, are you happy you made the right choice?
Become happier because, for many reasons, but I see since I'm meeting the guests and meeting people coming to me, there's an awful lot of wounded people out there, and into various kinds of difficulties that we are saved from. Now, we didn't join for that, we joined for God, but that's a plus.
It's a great bonus.
Yeah, and not alone are we freed from that, but we're able to help others who are in these situations, you know.
We've had a look at your cell inside, indeed, where you live, and they're barely minimal. You don't have personal possessions, do you, as such?
Not much, anyway. Just it was what's needed. We've more now than we used to have. We had just a dormitory before, and one bed and a curtain. So we've a little more than that now in a cell. And in fact, that would be the dangers of a cell, that one will start accumulating things. But
Exactly.
but that's pointed out to us, so that doesn't occur. But the dormitory was always a problem with regard to snorers. And in fact, sometimes they had to be evacuated and put in a place by themselves, because the legend was, or the legend is, the snorers don't disturb each other. I don't know how true that is. But anyway, the room or the cell for sleeping in is it's a godsend towards that, you know.
Now, what about some of the myths, some of the great myths about Melleray? Do ye dig a sod of your own grave every day?
But I'm afraid I can't use a more impolite term except rubbish. Absolute rubbish, because the cemetery, as you see, is out there beside the hedge, inside the hedge, and anyone could see that there isn't a sod turned anywhere.
It's amazing, though, the myths, and indeed the midnight bell going in the guest house was one of old as well.
Yes, and the monk breaking off his conversation at Christmas and saying, as we were saying last Christmas, this kind of thing. Yeah. These are myths, all right. You know.
There is a great story told about this bin that you had that was left out during famine days, and for some reason or other, it was suggested it was a miracle every morning. Down at the front of the gate was full of bread.
Yeah. Well, Malcolm Muggeridge said one time that the people least easy to convince of the supernatural are the people who should be most involved in the supernatural, namely priests, monks, and religious, and so on. But so the bin is a kind of not terribly well authenticated, if you like, I wouldn't say, but certainly, whatever about the bin, we helped during the famine distribute food, and as far as we were concerned, no one was left go hungry.
And the final question is this, and this is one I want you to answer, and you needn't smile when you're answering it either, I should say to you, and that is the great one about, you got a bit of land up here until tomorrow. Do you remember that one? We'll be gone tomorrow, or you'll be... That was always, we'll
Yeah.
see it, and tomorrow never came.
Right. I think I wouldn't put too much credence on that either, you know. And I know we owe a great deal to the Keane family, and I have to say that. And we're great friends with Sir Richard at the present time, you know, and all down the history we've been great friends with them. So that was a secure basis than that.
I'm sure when you joined Melleray 50 years ago, your family were very proud of you. But is it still a big deal?
Oh, it's a big deal still with my family. They're all, yeah. And thanks be to God, I'm friends with all of them, the whole gang of them. One of my brothers had 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. They all come to see me. And it would be the same for the monks too. There are people come to see them freely. But they're not, we don't like them to come, well, that'd be natural, you know, not to come too frequently, because that would disrupt the life of the community, you know. It would disrupt the prayer life and so on. But within reason, they can come to see you.
And what part of Ireland are you from?
I'm from County Offaly. Yep. But I came to school in Melleray, that's how I came to join. Because Roscrea was nearer to me, but I was at school here.
We saw the school on the way up, and indeed the school, when the school was closed, all the pupils moved down to the Augustinian College down in Dungarvan.
That is great, and the professors.
Yeah. What about, was that a sad day for you when the school
That was. It was part of history and part of our roots, you know. And for me, I was educated there, so I'm most grateful to the school for all it did for me. And I came from primary school to there, and it was there I got started off, and there I got interested in monastic life.
It was a boarding school at that time.
A boarding school, yeah. Mm-hmm. Although I have to say that when we joined, many of us joined from the school, we had no intention of going back to the school. We just joined to be monks. Yeah. It would be very arrogant of us to think that we were going to be professors or teachers.
Well, thank you very much, Father.
Well, to fought and down road.
So that's it for this week. We've been in County Waterford, we've been in Mount Melleray, we've seen parts of Mount Melleray we've never seen before. I certainly have seen parts of Melleray I've never seen before. And this is Eddie Wymberry for Waterford at 8. We'll be back again soon.